friends, what is happening? Happy Monday. Good Monday? Happy Monday, I guess is what you would say. This video would have been up a little bit sooner, but I got really distracted by going on a whirlwind cleaning spree because for some reason I just had this major burst of energy and I wanted to get a bunch of stuff done. So I started a load of clothes and I cleaned up the workspace because it was like a bomb went off in here, and put baby stuff away. Oh, you want me to show you our baby cubby hole? So I don't know if you can see, those are our baby cubby holes. For the time being, we have nowhere else to put baby stuff right now, and so yeah. Anyways, hello, welcome to my prank video. I'm gonna be talking about pranks. It's fitting I'm wearing a Street Farm shirt, as Jim always pranked Dwight on The Office, and that is one of our favorite shows. But oh my gosh, the camera battery's dying. It's like an eternal struggle with this camera battery. Almost every time we record a video, it just wants to die on us. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, that's better. We replaced the camera battery. So as we said last week, or was it last week? I don't remember. I love pranks, and I've loved them for a long time. Now, I think I was introduced to pranks at like the age of 4 with my sister, when it was like a mean prank, when it was like we went and TP'd a house that somebody we knew or something. I don't know. It's been so long. I remember getting in big trouble though. But yes, so I have kind of been pranking for a long time. I went through like a kind of couple years in my like early teens, like 14, 15, when like some of the pranks weren't necessarily the nicest pranks, you know, like ding dong ditching and stuff like that. I guess it's not super harmful, but you know, just stupid teenager stuff. It wasn't until a little bit, you know, mid-teenagers that I really started to kind of like understand pranking and like, you know, the psychological warfare you can go on someone. But I want to talk about my favorite pranks of all time, and one of the biggest prank wars I got into that ended up me being defeated, and this person had the upper hand on me the entire time, and it was embarrassing. But I'll talk about it because I have pictures and I'll show what happened to me. But first, let me start with some of my favorite pranks. So probably, well, side note, one of the pranks that I committed, so when we were in high school, me and my friends, we videotaped a lot of our pranks because we thought, you know, want to have video proof and thought it would be funny. And so we often would take the camera with us, and there was a sequence of pranks that I was never a part of, but they kept referring to, because I usually filmed everything. I mean I would participate, but then I'd do a lot of the filming. And so there's one night where they went out and like my friends went out and pranked like 4 or 5 houses of people that we knew, and they like forked lawns, and they saran wrapped a couple cars, stuff like that. Not horrible, but they kept referring to the cameraman as Eric because they wanted they referred to the cameraman as me because they wanted me to get retaliated too if these girls retaliated and these guys retaliated. And so like they kept, anyways, I thought it was really funny, even though I wasn't even there, but they were totally saying like, oh, good job, Eric, you know, stuff like that. So pretty funny. But so yeah, so let's talk about some of my favorite pranks. Let's start with, I think it's funny to scare people. Now, not majorly scare, like dress up in costumes and scare, but I really love jumping out and be like, ah, you know, because it's, I don't know, I think it's funny. If someone does that to me, I'll probably like, you know, it's only happened a few times where I'm like, but like, you know, nothing major, and then I kind of laugh about it. And so like, I was spending some time with my friend who was at his house by himself. His parents were gone. This was when he was in college. I was still living in my hometown at the time, and he was coming back from Seattle to paint for the summer because he was earning money for college and stuff, and so he would go out and paint all day. And so he's like, hey, my parents are gone, why don't you come stay with me for the week? And I was like, all right. And so I was hanging out in the house, and he didn't know what time I was going to come over. He just said, oh, I'll call you when I get home. But I had a key because I house sit for them all the time, and like they were like another family. And so like I had a key, and so I went over there knowing that he'd be home right around dusk. And so like right around probably 8:30 or 9, he'd be coming home. And so I went over, you know, a little bit before that, and I waited for him. All the lights were off, it was super dark, and my plan was to jump out and scare the crap out of him. And so, like, what I did was I waited, and he took forever to get home. I kept thinking, like, man, I was sitting in the dark, you know, like, because I didn't want any lights on, because if you walked in, he would know. And so, basically, like, I waited forever, and the way that his house works is you walk through the front door, and then straight shot into the kitchen, or you can go to the left, and then like go through the living room and then through the dining room back into the kitchen. So I was waiting in the hallway. So when you walk in the door, you go straight through. This way is the hallway, straight ahead is the kitchen. And so I was waiting right here on the hallway, and I was waiting for him. And he comes in, and instead of coming straight, which I thought he would come straight through the kitchen, he goes around through the living room for some reason. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I had to wait. And he was in the house probably for like at least 3 or 4 minutes. He must have been reading something or something, because he was like, he went through into the kitchen, and I waited there forever, and finally I heard him shuffling through, and I jumped out. He turned the light on, I jumped out. I was like, ah! The look on his face, I've never been able to scare him like that ever, and it was hilarious. I mean, he laughed about it too, but man, at the time he's like, oh, don't. It was so funny. Oh, I'm kind of mean, but so that's one of my favorite pranks that I did regarding like scaring people. Another really good prank that, well, okay, so there's 2 stories. So I used to have friends come over in my high school days. Quite often I was the house that people came over on the weekends, and we watched movies or hang out or whatever it was. And so I was always having people over. And so I was having a random movie night on like a Saturday during the school year. And so I think I was a senior. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was a senior in high school. And so I was hanging out with all my friends, and we were watching a movie. And like, I lived in this duplex with my mom, and the way that the duplex was set up was, it was very open, sort of like you walk in and then it's just like everything, like kitchen, living room, like everything is kind of open. There was a little bit of a wall between the kitchen and everything else, but like, I mean, you could see right into everything. And so the door was right here. You walk through the door, and then there was a couch, and then the TV. And I was sitting behind everybody in a chair, because everybody was on the couches and the chairs on the floor and stuff like that. And so I was just sitting in a kitchen chair right next to the door. And as we're watching the movie, I hear like steps on the porch, and I was like, is somebody on the porch? And I was like, that's weird. And like, I heard the doorknob sort of like shake a little bit. I was like, what? And so like, there was this window right next to the door where you could, I mean, it was like kind of a tall window, but if you like looked up, you could look out. And like, I looked up and looked out, and I saw someone running off, and I was like, what? And so then I noticed that my friend Brian, his car was covered in something, and I was like, dude, your car. So he like jumps up, he's like, what? I was like, someone's pranking your car. So I opened the door, and he like takes off out the door because he saw the car. And so he takes off out the door, and like, the rest of us are like, what? And so he runs down the person that was running from the house. He like hopped a neighbor's fence, like booked it into their, and he physically got in their car with them, and like was like, then he was like looking around like, okay, you, because he knew like he'd just been pranked. And so there was 5 girls that pranked him from his school. Like, we were friends with we knew all of them, and obviously because they knew where I lived. And so they like obviously pulled into my driveway and like came in and got all out laughing and stuff. And so Brian inspected his car, and what they had done was put maxi pads and tampons all over his car. And like, this was like a prank that was like total intentions just to kind of embarrass him and like make him feel kind of weird, because it's like, oh, girl products and that kind of stuff, you know, we're teenagers. And so the thing about it is they didn't realize is the pads with the whatever the sticky thing is, it did not come off. It came out, it did not come off the car. So he had adhesive tape all over his car for pretty much the rest of the time that he drove that car. And so we got some of it off, but a lot of them got stuck. And so like, the poor guy. But so like, we really wanted to obviously retaliate. And so, you know, he was sitting down with his dad, hanging out one day, and he was trying to figure out like, what do we do? And we were, we had multiple brainstorming sessions, and he was, so he was sitting with his dad, and he was talking to his dad, and his dad was like, hey, why don't you just puke on their cars? And he's like, that's disgusting. I think we should do that. And so what happened was, this is really funny because this is like the pastor of our church, right? He's like, you should puke on their cars, right? Not even anything we'd ever thought of before, ever. And so we were like, okay, this is a good idea. And so now, if you're really squeamish about this stuff, I'm really sorry, but I'm not gonna get into too many details, but you can just imagine, right? So we planned. I was in a band in high school. I know, so embarrassing, but we had a show on, like, it was I think it was December. It was either November, just because I remember it was really cold when we did this. And so Brian recruited all the guys. There was 5 of us, 6 of us that went, 5 or 6 of us that went, and we basically like they had a all-you-can-eat Mexican food buffet for one of his classes, where they went on, it was like a Friday night, they went to all-you-can-eat food, and then my show was after that. And so we were like, hey, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go eat all this Mexican food, all-you-can-eat Mexican food, and then we're gonna go to my concert, and then after my concert, we're gonna go and we're gonna hit these girls. And so after the concert, we went to the store and bought a whole bunch of milk, because if you know what the gallon challenge is, it's to try to drink as much milk as you can, and it usually makes you throw up because like milk is so heavy and everything, and it just like you can't keep it all down. And so so now mind you, we filmed this entire thing, so I did not participate in the actual throwing up situation. I hate throwing up, and I did not want to have to deal with that. It grossed me out pretty badly, but I filmed the whole thing, and I actually still have the tape, and I really want to digitize it because I want to send it to everybody that we like know that was involved. And so so we went out and we filmed it, and we did like an intro, like, oh, these girls, Brian was like, these girls got me, so I'm gonna get them back. And so our friend George, he was a wrestler, and he's like, look, I can't drink a ton of milk because I'm afraid of that, he's trying to make weight for something. And so instead he bought eggnog, which, looking back now, eggnog's way fattier than milk. Also, I don't know if you can drink a ton of eggnog and it can make you throw up the same way. And so this poor girl that we hit first, her name was Michelle, and hey Michelle, you're probably watching right now. So this poor girl, we felt really bad after the aftermath of what happened to her car, but what we did was we saran wrapped the front because we knew we don't want to ruin anybody's paint, because we're teenagers, we don't have money, we don't want to have to pay for a paint job. And so we saran wrapped the front part where we actually put the puke on, because we knew that the acid from the stomach acid would kind of like start to burn off the paint. And so we're trying to think ahead about that. But we basically like, George probably, I'm not kidding you, it probably took him like 20 minutes to dry heave, and he did not puke very much. And it smelled so bad. It probably was the worst smelling of the night, because otherwise if you drink a ton and it just immediately makes you throw up, it's like it wasn't in your stomach for very long, so it doesn't smell like puke, But man, Michelle's car got it really bad. And so we poured it on there, and it unfortunately went into the vents of her car, and so like when she turned the heater on, it would smell like puke in her car. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, it's so messed up what happened. But I mean, it was all in good fun. Obviously, we had no idea that was gonna happen. And she was like, it's not like she was super mad about it. She definitely retaliated after this, trying to prank Brian again. But anyway, I'll get to that. But so we hit Michelle, and then we moved to another girl, and I forget who it was, but because of the amount of time it took George to throw up, the next house that we got to, like, it was so late in the afternoon, because my concert ended at like 10:30 or something like that, so we started this pretty late. And so by the time we got to the store and went to Michelle's, it was well after midnight. And like, since we were all teenagers and stuff, we had curfews at the time, or most of us did. And so like we were like, we can't stay out super late. And so we then hit this other girl, I forget what her name is. I don't remember who it was, but this time it was Nathan and Brian that decided they would throw up on these cars. And so we did the same thing, saran wrapped it, and then they drank the milk, and man, they chugged that stuff fast and they threw up a lot. It was so gross. And so once again, I filmed the entire thing, and then what happened after that was we poured it on the car, and then it was so late at that point, we were like, we should probably go home. And so we banked, like, okay, we have 3 more people to hit. And so we were trying to figure out later like what to do with those people. And so then, so we get back to the house, and you know, we talked about it. It was really funny. It's funny because like the strawberry milk that we bought, it was only half used. I remember me and Brian's brother Brandon, we kept drinking it throughout the rest of the like weekend, because like we were like, it's puke milk, it's fine. I mean, there was no puke in it, but as we just what we called it, it was funny. So anyway, so the next Monday, while he was at school, I went to a different high school. These girls apparently like asked him like, oh, what'd you do to blend up that food? Obviously it's blended food. And so we knew that like none of them would really believe that. He was like, no, it's puke. And they're like, whatever. And so we're really thankful that we filmed the whole thing, because what happened was is the next week at youth group, we talked the leaders into like let us show this video after youth group is over, so these girls can see what we did. So we showed the whole thing in full of us, like not me personally, but everybody else throwing up, putting it on cars, like all this really nasty stuff, and they were so disturbed by it. And it was like, I think we probably won this prank war a little bit. Because they tried to blend up food later and put it on his car like it was puke, but it wasn't quite the same. It was just kind of one of those things where he just like rinsed off his car with the hose and was like, whatever. So like we still had a couple more girls to hit, and we ended up not really knowing. We got busted trying to get into one of the girls. Her name was Patricia. We tried to get into her car, but she didn't keep it unlocked, obviously. And so and she saw us from the window, and she came running out. What are you guys doing? And so one of the girls, we just dumped we saved all this, like the tampons and stuff, just dumped it on her car, because it was her parents' car, so we were like, let's just dump it on this one. And then this other girl, we put eggs underneath her car. Like, she left her car doors unlocked, and so we put eggs, we like popped the egg a little bit and then stuck it in a bag and then put it underneath so that it would smell really bad in a little bit. That, I mean, we didn't really know what to do with the rest of these that would be as good, so we just kind of did the random stuff. But I never heard about if she ever, I mean, she probably found it, but I don't think it ever actually smelled bad. Which is funny because, side note, we once pranked my friend. We put a open sardine can in a plastic shopping bag and stuck it underneath the seat because he never cleaned his car out, and we thought it was really funny if he just would never find them. His dad found them like a year later when he was cleaning out the car, and apparently it smelled really bad. And we felt bad. We're like, dude, we didn't mean to prank you. We meant to prank your son. But anyways. So yeah, that was pretty epic. Not only that, but like it was a pretty like, I mean, people talked about that for years after that because it was so like insane that why would we ever do something like that? But yeah, that was a pretty epic prank. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty funny. It's if you're sitting there and you think it's kind of mean, I mean, none of these girls ever got mad at us for this stuff. This was completely normal in our circle of friends. Like, we didn't see it as mean. They didn't see it as mean. I mean, Brian's car was ruined because of these pads, and he could care less. I mean, it was just like an excuse to be pranking each other, and I mean, it was so much fun, and it was just great times. So let me talk about one of the other things that happened to me with pranking that, well, it wasn't really, it was like a reverse prank. And this is sort of where, for us, where things were like, okay, we probably should only stick with people we know. He like calls his brother, and he's like pretty loud, he's talking pretty loud, and he calls his brother and he's like, hey man, I'm down by the bench, like, come down here and bring my knives. And we were like, what?